Hey everybody, and thanks for watching Woodcrest Bonsai. In this video I'm going to work on 3 Hornbeam pre-bonsai. I don't actually have any finished bonsai. These were air layered off a large tree that I have that I think this year I'm finally going to try to style it. So I have 3 of them. The 2 to the right were air layered in 2023. The one on the left, this guy here, was air layered last year. I took 3 air layers, but 2 didn't take, so they're actually still on the tree. Sometimes it takes a while. Hornbeam are native to the southern United States, southeast. They go all the way from Texas, and in the mountains of Mexico you can actually find them. I am at the very southern border, in fact below the southern border where these guys grow naturally. So I'm really happy that we're getting some cold here because they need to go dormant. They're a semi-deciduous tree, so they never drop all their leaves, so as you can see. So my plan is to work each of them individually on the top, and then I'm going to root prune and repot them, and all 3 are going to end up in a 10-inch bulb pan like this one. So this one will just go back into this pan, and the other 2 will be cut so they can fit into a bulb pan. So taking these 2 guys out of here, concentrating on this guy. Take him so we can't see any of him. So this guy, this was the original tree, and obviously you got a cut back there and another cut back here, and this is a water shoot, a sucker that grew to here, and then it grew really long. You can see right here, this scar right here is quite large, and the tree was starting to fall over. I do not want any of this because my tree is going to be up in here. So first order of business is to take off that sucker. And as a sacrifice branch, if you look really hard, you may be able to see that it's a little bit thicker here than it is here, with this branch adding some extra energy. But hornbeams never really get a massive buttress trunk like a ficus. So anyway, I'm going to take off that entire guy. May need to do 2 cuts with my concave cutters. Need to do 3. Oh, come on. Hornbeams have very hard wood, but I thought I was going to be able to get it with this guy. I'm going to take it out of the pot. Get up under it better. There we go. Okay. I want to clean it up a little bit. That's pretty good. Let's see how it looks from the front. There's still a little bit more that needs to come off. Okay, that's pretty good. So now we have our tree like that. Since I've got my regular cutters over here, I'm not really going to choose too much in the way of branching right now. But I do want to shorten some of these. And I'm not sure whether I want to keep it here and then keep it here. I think that's a pretty good proportion as far as the rule of thirds. So this would be a fairly feminine tree, tall and thin. So that's stage one for this guy. I'm going to repot it. The soil that they're in is a landscape mix, and it's beginning to degrade. So this one has already been reduced so we can fit into a bulb pan, but the others are going to need to be reduced even more. Number 2 is exactly the same age as that first guy. And you can see I have some repair on the pot. Some of these cheap pots just crack apart. See what this guy looks like. Get rid of some of the weeds. And as is the case with the first one, we had a water chute. We had a sucker that, as you can see, it just went crazy, and it was probably 2 or 3 feet longer. So that one comes off too, because it's too straight. Ooh, come on, baby. Couldn't be the fact that my tools are 30 years old. There we go. And I've never been able to root hornbeam cuttings, although they say that if you're going to try, you need the strongest rooting hormone that there is, which I believe is 0.3%. Most rooting hormone that you just buy is 0.1%. And then there's a little stronger, which is 0.2, and the strongest is 0.3. So now what do we do with this guy as far as style? Well, if we go up this way, then we have just a straight tree, no motion, no real character. So I'm going to take this off. And then even here too, it would be a little bit of a crook, but could that be a tree? This one has better taper. This one is thicker. But I like the movement this way. So that's what I'm going to do. Even though this one has a thinner trunk, which will give us better taper, I'm still going to go for the movement. Too late now. We'll clean that up later. So there's number 2. I also want to take off some of this top. And once again, since I read from left to right, tree will probably be somewhere in here. It could definitely be moved like that when I repot it, to give it a little bit better angle. So there's number 2. And number 3 is just long and leggy. Just goes up and up and up and up with no real branching down low. So I've got to decide where I want to cut it. I don't think I want to keep it that tall. And this branch was also air layered, almost entirely horizontal, so it was growing like this on the tree. So you can see there's nothing here because all this little stuff was growing up, nothing under here because branches that grow down. You can see there's some attempts, but they've all died back. But now that it's an upright, and it's got a nice gentle curve, so I think I'm going to take it somewhere in the curve up into here somewhere. Like to here. And since most of the growth on this guy was up top, there's almost nothing that really needs to be done down low here. So next step is to get my tray and my soil and to root prune and repot these guys. Even the one that's already in the 10-inch bulb pan is going to get nice fresh soil, be rejuvenated. So we're going to put it on pause, and we'll be back with the repotting. So this is my mix. I have a 3-gallon pot of leaf mold. I rake the leaves out of my yard, and I just let them sit in a compost bin. I never turn them. I don't want compost. I just want nice, open, airy leaves. And so that's a 3-gallon pot of that. And then I use a gallon pot of bagged commercial potting soil. You can see it's a completely different character. And then the third component is a gallon of the commercial landscape mix. So if you buy a tree or shrub at a garden center and you bring it home and it's got that really peaty mix with a lot of bark, that's this stuff here. I can buy this from the wholesalers that are still in town because I was a landscaper most of my life. So they still let me buy this stuff in bulk. Or they buy it in bulk and I buy it. You know, I take a giant bucket and they sell it to me. It's impossible to buy this in a bag at a big box store. So then I just a gallon of that. And then we just mix it all up. And this works well for me. I use this mix in almost all pre-bonsai that I grow. And then once I get into a bonsai pot with a tree, I go to the more rocky mix. But it really all depends on the tree. Like hornbeams, they are an understory tree in nature, and they grow in very low-lying areas that stay moist all the time. So as a bonsai, a hornbeam can never dry out, or else you don't have a hornbeam. And I've done that. I think I even made a video, dead hornbeams, and one just blew off the bench, you know, and I just forgot it. And by the time I discovered it was lying on the patio, it had succumbed to dryness. So not good. So that's my mix. I'm going to bring it down a little bit more. Okay. So now, we're going to take pot number 1 and get rid of these other pots. And I want to segregate the good soil from the stuff that we're going to pull off of this. So I have my handy dandy root hook. This used to be a 3-prong weeder, and you see that braze right there? The 2 other prongs were all like one piece of metal, and they fell off, and it became a perfect root hook. So just going to very gently begin removing that old soil. I don't know if you can see, but you can still see the old peat from the air layer. Right there, that's the old peat from the air layer. When I remove an air layer off a tree, I try very much not to disturb that peat, because if you disturb the peat, you're disturbing the roots, and you can get problems. Okay. It's actually looking pretty good. And this is the time of year for me to do this, right when they're completely dormant. I'm really happy that we've been getting some cold temperatures. Because like I said, hornbeams are actually, I'm about 100 miles too far south for them to actually thrive. So there we go. Looks like I need to cut some of this off here. Man, my scissors just, I think after 30 years, they're finally getting too dull. They're easy to sharpen, but I guess I just haven't sharpened them lately. And I don't worry about getting 100% of the old soil off of there. And since we cut off a fair amount of this guy, you know, you can prune the roots the same amount, and you can see the difference between the old soil, how it's turned really dark and it's sort of all mush, versus the really nice brand new, completely different stuff. Of course, this will turn into that over time, you know. And I've got a lot of crud in the bottom of the pot, so I'm going to pause again, go wash the pot out with some water. I don't want that stuff in the bottom. Alright, brand new pot. Good as new. And then I want to take, you can see there's some roots that are sticking outside of the pot. So I want to cut those away. I really try to avoid circling roots. So a root that hits the pot and then begins to circle around, this tree has none of that. So, okay, then I want the front to be about like that. And of course, in a round pot, you can always change the front. So I like to put a little bit of a mound in the pot, and then lay the tree down on there, push it down in. I want the angle to be more like that. And then just fill it up. And a lot of people use chopsticks to do this. Fingers work just as good. And Jim Smith, when he used to repot stuff, he never pushed it down into the soil at all. And he would leave a huge mound. So he would just lay the soil on the tree and then just leave it. Never. So it drained tremendously. And he was using the commercial mix exclusively. So there we go. There is number one. And looking at the volume that I used, I may need to make another batch of soil. So here's number two. And you know, I didn't bring the other pots. I'll be back. So now these are two brand new bulb pans, never been used. So we don't have to worry about the crud in the bottom. So let's take this guy off. Once again, try to keep the old soil separate from the new. But the reason I do this on the tray is I take this old soil and I throw it into my compost bin, which goes towards like things in the ground, my flowers and whatnot. So I don't throw this stuff away. It's aged and it's way too crummy for bonsai. But it makes a great, there's a circling root. Makes great stuff for in the ground. I grow a lot of flowers. I used to grow a lot of vegetables. And this time of year is the perfect time. In fact, believe it or not, it's January 5th and I have potatoes and onions in the ground right now. That's the positives of being in a mild climate. And actually, you must be growing potatoes and onions this time of year, or else you won't get much of a crop. It's too hot in the summer to grow both of those. Back when I was a landscaper, I did a landscape job for a guy that was a potato farmer down about 30 miles south of here. He had 9,000 acres of potatoes, and he sold the entire kit and caboodle to Frito-Lay to make potato chips. Oh, we're starting to get some pretty decent root flare here on this one. And I'm really not entirely worried about that right now. I think we've got a root right here. It's a little too high based on how I want the angle of this tree. There's another one. And even though this was in that tall pot, there's really very little on the bottom that I really need to trim to get it into the 10-inch bulb pan. This one has a lot more circling roots than the other. Probably because it was in a smaller pot. Okay. So another thing, I went to wash that other pot out. Hornbeams like this and other temperate trees that really have no drought tolerance, you want to leave the roots exposed as little as you can. You don't want to just sit the thing on the bench and say, oh, maybe I'll go get a drink. So that was a mistake on my part, not remembering to bring the pots or to clean that pot. I could have just used 3 brand new pots and then, okay. That one's got some decent roots. And it doesn't all need to be done today. So try to get rid of some of this. There we go. All right. Try to keep the old soil separate. Give it this could have possibly even gone into an 8-inch bulb pan. However, it'll grow that much nicer in a 10-inch. So I want my tree to be about like that. We have some surface roots here that could be an issue later on. But for now, I'm going to get it back into the pot. Use my human chopsticks. And these trees will take another few years before they're finished. My guess is, well, when I take the air layer and I remove it from the tree and I put it in the pot, I do nothing with it just to allow it to get vigor. You don't want to trim anything off of a newly potted air layer. Just let it grow, let it get vigor. The more the top grows, the more the roots are growing. So I'm pretty happy with these guys. They're pretty healthy. So that is number 2. Number 3 is last year's air layer. So it's a year younger. Can I pull it off with the soil that I've got? Actually, I've got more of a leaf mold. So I think, before I even get started. I'm going to give it a little bit more, even though the proportions will then be, if all else fails, don't kick the tripod. Oops. My producer gets so mad at me when I do that. Oh wait, I'm the producer. So what I need is an executive producer. Oh, excuse me. We all know what an executive producer does, right? They pay the people to make the movie. Okay, get rid of the old soil. On that one. So here we go. Here's number 3. And this is in a taller pot than either of the other two. So let's see what we got. This is another, oh, very nice roots. This is another one we can still see the moss, the sphagnum moss from the air layer. And I don't normally mess with that. So this appears to be a completely different mix. It's got more perlite. Go figure, eh? When did that happen? Oh, did you see that guy? Look at this. Earthworm. Wonderful in the garden. Bonsai killer. Because they eat the soil and then their poops are just too grainy, too fine. In fact, that black crud from the first two, I didn't find any earthworms, but that's what they do. So earthworms are wonderful in the ground, in your garden. Deadly for bonsai, even in training. Okay, this guy has, and I knew that would happen. See, it's got this whole lower piece that has no roots whatsoever. So that's how I cut it off the tree. At least I hope it has no roots whatsoever, because I certainly don't want to be chopping roots away when I do this. And the verdict is, where'd it go? Yeah, no roots, just the stump. Where am I? Okay. So this one here, I don't want to cut a lot of the roots. I just want to feather them out. I'm going to take my fingers and flatten them like this. Try to get them where you can see the old callus. Yeah, 2 other air layers that I took the same time as this one didn't root. They just made a gigantic callus, and then that was it. Okay, I've got to cut off some of this stuff because it's going to spiral in the pot. Okay. So what a difference a year makes as far as roots. Alright, here we go. Take it off of there. Where's the front of this thing? Is there a front? I don't think there is. We're just going to wing it. Probably something like that. So get the pot. Give a little mound. Put the base of the tree on the mound. And then try the best I can to feather these roots out so they're not going to spiral. And when they form the nabari, they'll make a nice nabari. Yeah, let's just ravage the thing. Okay, that looks pretty good. I've got some roots here that they just want to pop back up, so I'm going to make a special effort to keep them down as I fill it with soil. Make sure those roots don't pop back up. And I probably didn't even need the extra leaf litter. This guy here is may be a subject for a few rocks on top of the soil to keep it stable. You could really tell the difference between 2 years and 1 year of root development. Alright, so since it's a round pot, I can choose whatever front I want. So with this 1-year-old, I will probably give him another rest. Just let it grow like crazy. Try not to do too much trimming. Maybe do some if it gets crazy. Like I probably should have removed the suckers from the other two sooner. But I'm a big believer in giving the trees a chance to recover from a procedure like this. This is the perfect time of year to do it. And now the next thing is I grow them in dappled shade. I'm going to put them back on the bench, basically right where they came from, and then they're going to get a really good soaking because these things have 0 drought tolerance. So that's it for this video. And I realized we didn't have any finished trees, but if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll be able to watch these guys continue. And once again, this is what I call paying my dues. Once these guys have developed into really nice trees, which I think they all have the potential. The other two have a little better curvature. We'll be able to look back on these videos here and see their beginnings, and then you can appreciate what's the term? The journey that they take to be finished bonsai. So please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment if you'd like. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.